Well, hi Roger, thanks for coming in today. I wonder if you could just give us a brief overview of the work that you've been doing in assessment and feedback with your students.
Well, originally I started using screencasts, which is something that we work together on, but more recently I've been using audio feedback and also using the iPad as a teaching tool, but also as an assessment tool. So these two things now have actually combined in the courses that I've been running, a Year 1 course and a Year 2 course, which is a music analysis course, and together the audio and the iPad seem to work terribly well together.
And for the viewer, the curriculum that you work with is BA Music.
Yeah.
Great.
So in Year 1, it's a musicology course, Music in the West, and this is a strand. It's a study skills and research for module, or strand of a module for musicians. So it's a sort of 6-week course, and they're on the way. There are lots of tasks for them to do, generally to do with online stuff. So it's all to do with what the library has. Looking for online journals, ebooks, all of that, and finding their way around all this new technology in terms of research. And then there's a summative, very short essay, which is what I feed back on with audio and using the iPad. Right,
and because I know that you've been involved, and as you've just mentioned, in creating your own screencasts. Am I right in thinking that quite a bit of the online work they do is based around your own screencasts?
I mean, I mean, a little bit like yours, the screencasts are instructional. So in week 1, I send them off to the Times online, and they have to find an obituary from 1952 and so on and so forth.
Sure.
And so I do a little screencast where I actually just guide them through how to find it, how to navigate the e-resources that we have in the library. And it seems very, very helpful. I mean, most of them are au fait with all of this and do it very well, but there are some who find it quite difficult or problematic in getting around all these corners, especially if they're doing it off-site.
You've mentioned various pieces of technology in our interview. How easy or difficult was it getting to grips with the various technologies?
All of these assignments coming through Turnitin, so they've all been viewed with the originality report, and then I download them all as PDF files. It's a bit clunky, and perhaps you know a better way to do this, but I send them either to Google Drive or to Dropbox and then take them off there onto the iPad. And then there are lots of different PDF annotation apps that you can use. I happen to use Notability. It seems to me the easiest, the clearest one to use. So they're all in a file in Notability. And what I do is to mark them by hand. So rather than typing in, I do it in the old-fashioned way with paper scripts, with the stylus. Writing on and annotating. But the thing about it is that what I can do is simply to underline something else, just put a cross by something, without actually having to explain it in typed text or in written notes, because that's what I'm going to do with the audio. So this is how the two work together.
And of course that procedure is so much quicker for you with the stylus and the iPad than it would be using the built-in facility within Turnitin.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm very well aware of that 3-minute audio thing that you can use in Turnitin. I have tried it, but I prefer to do it the way I'm doing it, because then I don't have to type.
I was thinking more, Roger, about the fact that in Turnitin, using GradeMark, you'd have to actually use your mouse and highlight a word, click, and so on and so on, whereas you can just work quickly and efficiently with the stylus.
So maybe it takes more time to download them all, but the actual marking is much, much quicker. So my kind of procedure for that then is I generally do this at home, and I have the laptop open with Audacity running, so I use Audacity to record these because it's the simplest. thing to do. So I mark it by hand, and then simply start the Audacity and talk through it.
Right.
And the thing is that having underlined these things and having just read it and marked it, as it were, it's all fresh in my mind, and I can talk either quite short bites of things or at length. Generally speaking, the audio files are only about 3 minutes, something like that, because I talk quite fast, I suppose. But I talk through, so what I expect the student to do, what I ask the student to do when they receive the feedback, is actually to have their essay with my annotations on it open on their screen when they listen to the audio feedback.
Sure.
Because the annotation on the essay actually doesn't really make much sense, because I'm going to talk
because
about
you're
it.
literally just highlighting, underlining, and so on.
Yeah.
But of course, this also is a very neat way of overcoming one of the problems that's often raised, that when tutors generally annotate an essay and they handwrite comments, there's often an issue of legibility there.
Yeah.
But you're actually overcoming that using the audio feedback.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of really good things about it. You can, because you can speak quite quickly, you can say a lot of things that take a long time to mark in Turnitin, unless you're using the quick mark thing.
Yes.
Just simply about punctuation or spelling or some strange sentence construction or something like that. You can just say this sentence, just look at this sentence. It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yes.
And then I don't have to go any further than that. Whereas in Turnitin, I would have to say something about it and type something in. I also actually don't think that the quick mark, I'm sure students don't read the set quick mark things, about apostrophes or something, and it goes through all of this kind of dictionary definition of what an apostrophe is and how it should be used. And if I was reading it, I would just glaze over.
Yes.
But having somebody saying the apostrophe is wrong here, do you understand? If not, come and see me. I can say things like that. The other thing that I think is really important about it is tone of voice.
Right.
And I think this is really quite crucial, really, because for work that is very good, you can say, well, the first thing I usually say when I'm doing the audio feedback is say, hello, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And then I say, this is a really terrific piece of work. There's some wonderful things in here. Look at this. You say this really well, and some good points, and I can go that way.
Yeah.
Or I can say, hello, so and so. Well, there are some great things in here, particularly towards the end. But,
yes.
And again, the tone of voice, you can actually give a mark of 45%.
Yes.
But the audio feedback is generous and jolly and supportive. Whereas if you're just reading text in Turnitin, then it's a whole different experience for the student who's reading the feedback.
Now, this brings me to a question that I've often asked myself about the confidence with which the tutor can enter into audio feedback. Yeah. I mean, you've been doing this for, what is it, 2 or 3 years now?
Yeah.
Was there a bit of a learning curve for you?
No, not really. I think I just leapt in, really. And sometimes I always listen back to the audio file in Audacity before I upload it. Sometimes I have a kind of brain freeze, you're sort of looking at, you've said something, and then you look at something, you think, and then there's a great longueur.
Yes.
So you have to go back and edit it, and I do sometimes go back and might take something out, edit something out.
But generally
speaking, I don't. No. Generally speaking, I just go through. So if I cough or if I stumble, or it doesn't matter. It's all part of being a human being.
And presumably, you take the view that in a seminar activity or in a lecture, we all of us are coughing and spluttering at times anyway.
Yeah.
There must be pedagogical principles that underpin this approach or these approaches you've been using. Could you say a little bit about those?
Yeah, I mean they are things that I probably already said about The fact that actually I don't like typing comments. I think I think sometimes they can be misconstrued. They're not clear, ambiguous in some way or other, and they don't. What I'm keen to do is always to be critical but generous.
Yes.
And the generosity doesn't come over in written feedback, I don't think, which is why I think the audio works very well.
What has the student reaction been?
I mean, the comments that I've had back from students say that this is just one step away from actually coming and having a tutorial and having the essay tutored back, which is something that we used to do in the old days when we didn't have as many students on these courses.
Yes.
Certainly I think that's a really positive aspect to it, that they feel as though you've actually engaged with their work and that there's a real personal response to their work, and then if they want to take it further, I'd like to think that the way in which the feedback has been given gives them the confidence or permission to be able to come and seek me out and ask me about it.
And do you find that is the case?
In a few cases, yes, but generally speaking, they're very happy with the audio.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've mentioned that students have given you informal feedback about these approaches, but do you have any more formal evaluation evidence that you could cite?
Well, it has been a question in the questionnaire,
right?
Yeah. And generally speaking, it gets a positive response, and sometimes a bit of qualitative stuff in the box at the end.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. You've mentioned various pieces of technology in our interview. How easy or difficult was it getting to grips with the various technologies?
Sometimes it is a little bit challenging. I mean, I'm of an age where back in 1984, was it, or 1982, I bought the Amstrad when it came out, the word processor with the green screen and everything.
Yes.
And from there on, I'm basically just self-taught.
Yeah.
I haven't really been to on any courses.
No.
And because of using Mac rather than PC, a lot of these applications, particularly the ones for the iPad, are very intuitive and actually quite easy to learn, really, rather than something that I still struggle with now after all these years, which is Excel.
Yes.
So,
So for the intending tutor, but somebody, perhaps a tutor who is, fairly IT savvy, but, doesn't do a lot of their own background research on these things, you'd think it's a manageable step to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great, thank you. How have you found the efficiency gains for the tutor in these innovations that you've been working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think once I've started, as I sort of explained before, how I do it with the Audacity and the iPad in this particular instance, once I'm on a roll, it actually goes pretty fast. So with a short assessment item that's only a 500 word, I can do it in 15 minutes, each one in 15 minutes.
Right.
I know that's probably quite a long time because there are 60 of them, but nevertheless, 15 minutes per item I think is pretty good. Really.
How do you think that compares to the old technique that presumably you used to use?
It's probably very similar, actually.
Right.
It's probably the same. Yeah.
So if we're looking in terms of time efficiency, they're probably on a par.
I think so, yeah.
But your point is that what the student gets out of it is very much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know from what you've been saying that this seems to have been a successful endeavour, and I assume that you intend to use it in the future and to refine it.
I mean, at the moment, I'm really only using it in terms of teaching as a kind of a very high-tech version of the overhead projector. But what it does mean is that whatever I do in class is saved and can go onto the VLE. That's the great thing about it.
Yes.
So nothing's lost.
Yeah.
So there's none of this taking a picture of the blackboard stuff. It's all saved. So that's great. And I think the audio thing is very, very good, and I might use that in other modules as well. The thing that worries me is that for larger assessment items that are 2,500 words, or even dissertations or things like that, I think it's problematic, really.
Yes.
For summative, but I think for formative, I think audio feedback is certainly something. When somebody sends me a draft of something, rather than me type my comments, I'll just speak the comments and send them an MP3 file.
Right, so this approach really has generalised to other activities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am aware, Roger, that you have your own website, which I think is called Professor Gadget.
Yes, it is.
And I think interested viewers might want to take a look at that afterwards, because I think some of your work and some of your findings and some of your evaluations are on that website.
They are, yeah.
Great.